Pedro Morales as the Worldwide Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion. Birth name Pedro Antonio Morales, born October 22nd, 1942 in Culebra, Puerto Rico. Died February 12, 2019 at the age of 76 in Birth Amboy, New Jersey, United States. Spouses Karen Morales, married 1966. Children, Pedro Morales Jr., 1974. Professional wrestling career, ring names: John Cleonis, Johnny Como, Johnny Rico, and finally, Pedro Morales. Build height, 5 feet 10 inches. Build weight, 235 pounds, and had a great career in professional wrestling. He debuted in 1959. Morales originally came to the WWA in 1960, where he held the World Heavyweight Championship and World Tag Team Championship. In the 1970s, he joined the WWF, winning it World Heavyweight Championship and United States Championship, and also was the first Triple Crown champion to be Intercontinental Tag Team, as well as, I believe, the United States champion, something to that effect. WWF in the 1980s, he won the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship and Tag Team Championship, established himself as the promotion's first Triple Crown champion. He retired from professional wrestling in 1987. A popular champion, Morales had particularly appealed to his native Puerto Ricans and the wider Latino audience. The first Latino to hold the World Heavyweight Championship, his combined region, and the WWF Heavyweight Champion remains among the longest in the history. He also holds the record for the most days as Intercontinental Champion. He was inducted into World Wrestling Federation Hall of Fame in 1995, the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum in 2015, and the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame in 2017. Morales was born October 22nd, 1942. Culebra, Puerto Rico, island off the shore of Puerto Rico's main islands. He is a member of a large family with 85 cousins just on his mother's side. Morales once claimed that 65% of Culebra's population had some bloodline connected to him. Well, that'll tell you something. He was raised in Culebra throughout his childhood and remained there until reaching when his mother sent him to his aunts in Brooklyn, New York, to finish high school and education. It was also the great things that happened throughout the years with Pedro Morales, as far as going to Japan and wrestling over there in Tokyo and all the great things. You can check him out on Wikipedia, and you can check out all the great things on Pedro Morales, because he had a great career, especially in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. So check it out, and rest in peace, Pedro. Welcome, everyone, to Legends of Professional Wrestling. This week, we got a great, unbelievable pictures. A great Latin superstar, legend, one of the best out of Puerto Rico, Pedro Morales. That's right, Pedro Morales from Culebra, Puerto Rico. Born October 22nd, that's right. And he was born in 1942. This man could have did anything. And in Puerto Rico, you know, baseball is pretty popular, and he was pretty good at baseball also, but this 220 pound, 48 and a half inch chest, 17 and a quarter inch arms, 220 pounds, you guess right. He picked professional wrestling. That's right, professional wrestling, and this week we got a great match. Oh, the Mat Classic is going to be unbelievable for Madison Square Garden. We got matches with Pedro winning the title from Ivan Koloff. Unbelievably never seen anywhere, anytime, on any network. Where you going to see it? Right here on Revere TV. That's right, your source of community cable. With who? The Boston Bad Boy, Rocky Raymond. That's right, the only Boston Bad Boy. Only man to have all this great footage and all these great pictures of Pedro Morales. Let's start it up right now with our first photo of Pedro Morales. Now, Pedro Morales, he was born, that's right, October 22nd, 1942, and this man was the youngest professional wrestler of all time. He started at a young, ripe age of 16 years old, started in the California area, tag team champions with such great legends as Pepper Gomez. If you remember Pepper Gomez, you got to be about 60, 70 years old at this particular time. Like Morris from the Veterans, you got to be his age to remember who Pepper Gomez is. And to bring up Morris, that's right, that dirty trickster Morris, that last show I did, he threw the blow and the snow and all that other stuff that was in my eyes. I burned my iris. My hand was in a cast. Then I had a sling. Then I had a brace. But in the future, don't you think that Morris and Rocky Raymond are going to meet again? Now, getting back to Pedro Morales, let's keep on shooting right here. Pedro Morales was a great wrestling champion, 1971. Let's shoot those pictures. Let's get into the next one with Gorilla Monsoon right here. Gorilla Monsoon was the Manchurian giant. He helped guide Pedro Morales. He helped manage him because Pedro Morales couldn't really speak that great English, and he still can't speak that great English. And if you ask him today, that's how he made his money, by not being able to understand English and getting his ways. 1971, he wrestled Ivan Koloff. The great title changes that went on when you saw Bruno Sammartino get defeated by Ivan Koloff in Madison Square Garden in 1971. You saw Pedro Morales pick it up, that's right, and you're going to see that match today on Legends of Professional Wrestling, EPW. And then Koloff, that's right, Koloff was in the ring with Pedro Morales. He lost, and there was $86,885. That was the gate. Over 20,000 wrestling fans to jam in Madison Square Garden in 1971. And you better believe it, because they turned away 9,000 more. And then the title went from Koloff to Pedro. Then Pedro got beat by Stan Stasiak, and then Stan Stasiak got beat by the living legend Bruno Sammartino. And the next photo is going to show another great shot of Pedro with Sonny King, Chief Jay Strongbow, and Pedro Morales in the middle. And we can keep moving right along here with all these great photos. You can see our other champion, Victor Rivera. He was a Puerto Rican champion that came in very close with Pedro Morales. And you had Chief Jay Strongbow in a six-man tag match. And basically, the great footage that we're going to see in the future coming up, we're going to get that to you on the Mac Classics. But in the meantime, we can just keep clicking those pictures so I can talk about them. And you got Chief Jay Strongbow again with Sonny King. And you can see Pedro Morales in the middle. Very great physique at that particular time. No steroids. Like I said before, he had a 48.5-inch chest, 17.5-inch arms, 220 pounds. And he was in great shape. And basically, Pedro was a great tag team partner with Mil Mascaras. Future pictures. We can just keep clicking those pictures now. There you can see Mil Mascaras, Pedro Morales, and Victor Rivera. And that was a great shot taken, I believe, in Madison Square Garden. And you can see Pedro Morales with Chief Jay Strongbow and all the great matches that they had as tag team partners. You know, back in the 70s, professional wrestling was, it wasn't like today. It wasn't all the glitz and glamour. It was more, you had to really get in the ring and show your ability as a professional wrestler. And Chief Jay Strongbow was a regular partner with Pedro in the mixed matches as they went up against such great wrestlers as, at that particular time, the Mongols, Baron Mikel Cicluna, and King Curtis Ayakea. And next photo, Bruno Sammartino, a bloody mess here in this picture. And you can see him with Pedro Morales in one of their tag team matches. And many of you wrestling fans may remember, or you may not, being on how old you may be, when they had Pedro Morales and Bruno Sammartino on Channel 56, WLVI-TV, when Saturday Morning Wrestling, when it was Professor Toro Tanaka and Mr. Fuji. And what happened was, at the end of the match, they ended up throwing salt into the eyes of Bruno and Pedro, and they ended up going at it. And then that what made the great Shea Stadium match, when it was Bruno Sammartino against Pedro Morales for the coveted Worldwide Wrestling Federation Championship, the Tri-WF Championship, which was a great wrestling show with Bruno against Pedro. And that was the days of the good old days of wrestling. And perhaps that's why wrestling today is called entertainment and not professional wrestling. Now you see a shot of Pedro Morales, who was very, very brutal back in those days. You can see Pedro here with the American flag and the Puerto Rican flag. And he had a lot of bloody matches in Madison Square Garden where Pedro used to take on all comers. George Steele was one of his big opponents back in the day, as well as Pampero Firpo and many, many more wrestlers that were up and down the pike back in the day. You see George the Animal Steele here, and that's going to be another one of our Mac Classics that we're going to show you this week on Legends of Professional Wrestling with who? Rocky Raymond, the Boston Bad Boy. You better believe it, and you better believe it right now, because I'm telling you all the great info of the real days of professional wrestling. And there's that devastating move of George the Animal Steele. He had him in that flying hammerlock, which was very devastating at the time. And George Steele was a very tough opponent. And then you can see here Pampero Firpo, the bull of the Argentines, and a bear hug at Pedro Morales. I believe that was in Philadelphia at that time. And Pedro took on all comers. He was a great champion and good friends with Bruno Sammartino, which was the reason why he won the title, because Bruno taught him the moves that he needed to know to beat Ivan Koloff for that title. You see Professor Toro Tanaka and Mr. Fuji against Morales. This could have been that tag match with Bruno and Pedro, where they threw the salt in the eye of Bruno and Pedro and made that great show in Shea Stadium, which was Pedro against Bruno Sammartino for the Tri-WF Championship. Now, Bruno and Pedro were very close friends up until that tag match. And you can see here you got Pedro Morales with the side headlock on King Curtis Ayakea. Crazy man, crazy, and you can see he's a bloody mess. Most of Morales' matches would end in blood because he was a real hot, fiery guy, and when he lost his temper, there was trouble to be had, and he could control it. And his famous saying was, "I'm ready for any kind of action, and if I got to pick up a chair, I'm going to do." With his broken English, here he is, another shot with King Curtis Ayakea, which is one of the greatest Hawaiian wrestling champions. This guy was a huge man, this King Curtis. He was towering over Pedro, as you can see the size difference, as he has, I believe, a chain across his face. And Pedro met all the great names of back in the day, whether it be Fred Blassie, which is going to be another one of our great Mac Classics. Here you see him in a picture with Black Jack Lanza, one of the other great matches that he had defending that Worldwide Wrestling Federation Championship. And I tell you, he never ducked anybody. He had many opponents and many fights in Madison Square Garden, as well as Boston Garden. He fought the likes of Jimmy Valiant, Boston Garden inside a steel cage. He had some great matches. Here's one where he's pinning Pampero Firpo, and many more matches that he had. He had a great reign as WWF champion. And who could not remember his feuds with Don Morocco as the Intercontinental champion? And Pedro had won all the titles there was to win in the WWF. He was tag team champions with Bob Backlund on that great card that was Antonio Inoki in the main event against Muhammad Ali, and then the tag match was Bob Backlund and Pedro Morales against the Wild Samoans, which they won the tag team championships but had to give it up due to the fact that Pedro Morales at that particular time was the world champion and couldn't defend both belts in the correct manner of the State Athletic Commission at that particular time, because at that time it was sanctioned and supervised by the State Athletic Commission, whether it be New York, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. There was a commission back in the days of professional wrestling. And here you got Pedro Morales getting thrown off that top rope by Eric the Red. Eric the Red was a big guy, big Viking type guy, and you can see Pedro Morales flying through the air. And this is not Ringley Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, because he'd fly through the air, that Pedro. He had some great moves, great drop kicks, and a lot of great moves you've seen at that particular time. The flying tactics, the flying body press was one of his moves. He did a lot of flying headlocks. He did a great drop kick, and he was more a little bit at that time a little bit like the lucha libre style of professional wrestling that you may see now if you can pick it up on the Latin channels, or lucha libre, CMLL, or AAA, or all the other great Mexican wrestling that you may have on your network. But Pedro was one of the best world champions that they ever had in the WWF. It was more original. It was more believable that they were real men and they were doing real moves and real professional injuries that happened, and it wasn't to the state of the storylines of today where they're talking 15, 20 minutes. When these guys got into the ring, they got into the ring for an hour, and they wouldn't be talking for that 20, 25 minutes before they opened the show. They'd get in the ring, they'd give you what you paid for, and the top of the marquee said professional wrestling, and that's exactly what you got with the old days of professional wrestling with Pedro Morales and all the great, great legends that you're going to see here. We're on the Legends of Professional Wrestling, and you can keep it on this station Wednesday nights. That's right, you can catch it on. That's right, and you can catch it on Saturdays, and you can catch the reruns as well. And sometimes our great producers here, being that they may put a block of wrestling on, and they'll put on all the great shows of Empire Pro Wrestling. I'm sure you've all seen Empire Pro Wrestling and Rocky Raymond traveling from coast to coast. If it's from Bangor to Boston and Boston to Bangor, we've done that loop. We've done them all. And here's a shot of Pedro Morales and Bruno Sammartino in Madison Square Garden. This is a shot that you see, a lot of these pictures, great pictures that were taken back in the good old days of professional wrestling. Now, Pedro Morales did wrestle out in California for a period of time. He wrestled with Pepe Gomez, Mil Mascaras. He had some great, here's a great picture of Pedro and Bruno with the Worldwide Wrestling Federation Tri-WF Championship belt. That's a beautiful belt right there. And Bruno and Pedro, they were great friends, and that's perhaps why Pedro won that championship, because he got a lot of tips from Bruno how to beat the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff, because Ivan Koloff was 315 pounds and he had some great size, and Pedro gave away some weight. I believe he was around 240, maybe 250 at the time when he beat Ivan Koloff in 1971, Madison Square Garden. One of the biggest gates at that particular time. It drew $86,885. Over 20,000 people showed up at the show in Madison Square Garden, and about 9,000 were turned away. Believe it? You better believe it, because I'm giving you the facts. I'm giving you it all right here from the brain of Rocky Raymond. That's right, all the wrestling history. And then wrestling magazines, as you can see this one here, Pedro Morales on the cover. And Pedro was a great, Latin wrestling star, and it was one of the first Puerto Rican world champions to come out of Culebra, Puerto Rico. And in this particular magazine, it was one of his younger shots. And he had some great, great cover shots, Pedro. When he first came into the WWF, he was the United States champion. And on the next magazine cover, you'll see that he was wearing that United States Championship belt. There it is right there, Pedro Morales, Wrestling World. He was the United States champion. He came into that ring and he defended that title, but had to basically give it up after he won the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, because back in the day, you couldn't defend two titles within 30 days. You had to give one up, and his schedule at that particular time was very busy, because you go to New York. It's not like today. They go to Madison Square Garden maybe 2-3 times a year. Each and every month, Madison Square Garden held a professional wrestling show. It's like the Spectrum, as well as Philadelphia and parts of New York, Long Island. And then you had the Boston Gardens and all these areas that you don't see. Well, you do see they're wrestling each other 15, 20 times, and it's the same matches over and over on TV. But these guys here, they'd make the loop, they'd make the Northeastern loop, and they'd make, back in the day, they didn't go into the NWA areas. NWA stayed in their territory. They had all the territories all mapped out then down in Florida. Then we have a picture right here, as you can see, Pedro Morales from the magazine here. I believe it's this magazine here that I have in my hand, that Pedro Morales basically was getting the belt awarded to him by Bruno Sammartino. And there was a great story on how Pedro won the championship. And it says, he won the championship for my idol, Bruno Sammartino. And then it became the era. It became the dawn of Pedro Morales, because that's when that era picked up where Bruno left off for a period of time in 1971, and Bruno was defeated by Koloff, and then Koloff got defeated by Pedro. Pedro picked up that schedule of Bruno Sammartino's, which he found out real quickly that Bruno's schedule wasn't a schedule that everybody could do. And he found that out quite quickly.
Here at World Gym in Somerville, oh, I'm so elated, I can only be here. It's me, it's BBB. We're here with the Great Eight and the living legend, Bruno Sammartino. All you people, watch it from 10 to 11. It's the best of Empire Pro Wrestling with this man, the living legend. Tell him, Bruno.
That's right. Be sure and watch it, because if you want to see the best of yesteryear and whatever, this is the place to be.
Be there!
And we're back at Madison Square Garden. Pedro Morales defending his Worldwide Wrestling Federation World title against George the Animal Steele, the Detroit Destroyer. An evil man in the ring, an evil man outside the ring, an unhappy groveler. As you can see, the bald head, the unpredictable look in the eye, the hair like an animal, like an ape, the same old wrestling attire. And coming to the ring now, Pedro Morales, the champion, the people's champion from Puerto Rico. Coming into the ring now with the Worldwide Wrestling Federation Championship belt, Pedro Morales. Oh, George Steele attacks him before the bell as he puts some heavy blows on Pedro Morales now. Rights and lefts, and he's jogging him over that top rope. Morales sailing over that top rope as the animal now, the unpredictable animal. Morales outside on that hard concrete floor. Pedro Morales caught off guard before the bell. George the Animal Steele, the Detroit Destroyer. Evil-looking groveler. Hairy like man, ape-like actions. Oh, he's got Morales by the hair. Oh, he rammed his head down on that ring apron. Look at this animal. He's telling the crowd. Nick Crow, the referee. Pedro Morales outside the ring now. Trying to get back into the ring now, get back into this match. And it's George Steele now. He rams his head into that steel corner post now. Pedro Morales. Get rammed in that steel post by George the Animal Steele, the Detroit Destroyer. The man that eats turnbuckles, chews on paper cups, swill, garbage barrels. He goes in barrels, chews on food. He's an animal. He's unpredictable. Hairy like man, ape-like moves. And he's taunting Pedro. Pedro now back up. Rams him into that steel post again, and Morales down on the mat now as you see the referee Nick Crow telling Steele, stay in the corner, let the man back on his feet. The animal now like a cat, back and forth, cat and mouse game now as the referee trying to keep him in this corner, trying to get Morales back into the ring now as Pedro lost here. George Steele now got him by the ear. Pushing him back to the corner now. Oh, a big left hand. A second left hand. Oh, George Steele. Oh, he reeled him over that top rope again. Pedro Morales down on the concrete floor here in Madison Square Garden. Unbelievable action here. On the best of Madison Square Garden. I can't believe it. I'm so elated. It's Pedro Morales and George Steele. Oh, he rammed him into this corner again. That steel post will not move. Morales could have a shoulder injury now. As the animal, the Detroit Destroyer, Morales hops in the ring now. Oh, big left hand into the breadbasket now. Pedro Hart, the Latin heartthrob, as the animal now. Set and rhythm by Pedro Morales. One of the most powerful left hand in all of professional wrestling now. George the Animal Steele now down on the mat. And the referee pushing back Pedro. And Pedro wants some kind of action. He wants to get into this match now. And Steele now hanging on the ropes. Pedro anxious to get his hands on the animal. And it's George the Animal Steele now trying to get back to his feet. Oh, big boot by Pedro Morales. Field goal, sending him outside the ring now. Half in the ring, half out of the ring. It's George the Animal Steele.
Pedro now pulling him up now by his tights. It's Pedro Morales getting George the Animal Steel up to his feet. And is he return the favor? Oh, he ran him into that turnbuckle. And George the Animal Steel now on the receiving end of Pedro Morales. And our referee backing up Pedro. Pedro's back out there with a big boot to the side of the head of the Animal. Another one. These are the great mat classics from Madison Square Garden. These are the legends of professional wrestling, the foundation. These are the wrestlers that made wrestling what it is today. George the Animal Steel, watch out, he's got a foreign object. He's got a foreign object in his hand now. Known for those foreign objects is George the Animal Steel. As you can see in his right hand now, Pedro anxious. Oh, he launched it into the throat of Pedro Morales. He launched it. Looks to be some kind of a foreign object. And our referee, Nick Crow, look at the Animal go wild on Pedro. Pedro comes back with a right hand of his own. A big boot to the midsection. Pedro, a southpaw. Oh, he nailed him with that one. George the Animal Steel now. Oh, he stuck it in his throat again. Looks like a pencil of some sort. He's got it in his mouth, underneath his armpit. A master of concealing the foreign object. He's putting the boots to Pedro. Jumping up and down on that left hand of Pedro Morales. Oh, a big left hand to the belly of another one now. George the Animal Steel sent reeling. Pedro. Oh, what a left on the side of the head of the Animal. And Morales choking. Viciously choking. He can't hold it back. He's choking away at the Animal. And our referee, Nick Crow. Come on, Pedro's trying to bring. Oh, he's stabbing him. Pedro now. Pedro's biting the hand of George Steele. He wants that foreign object. Pedro now. Trying for that foreign object now. Looks like Pedro got that foreign object. George the Animal Steel wants no part of the Latin heartthrob. George the Animal Steel, the Detroit Destroyer, the groveling, hairy, ape-like man. Pedro, oh, a big left hand now. Georgie gasping for air. Down on that mat, it's George the Animal Steel, leveled by the left hand of Pedro, and a big left boot to the side of the head of George the Animal Steel. Unbelievable action here. Oh, George Steele hit him with a low blow. Pedro down on the mat now. And our referee, Nick Cole. Georgie working on that left arm of Pedro Morales. He's stomping it. He's trying to stomp the life. He's got him up in that hammerlock. Got him up in that flying hammerlock. George the Animal Steel's finishing move. Pedro now getting the boots put to him again. He's working on that left arm of Pedro Morales. Still looking for a submission to win the World Championship here in Madison Square Garden. Over the back, it's Pedro. Big drop kick by Morales. Steele sent reeling. Pedro's going up to the top rope. He's going high. Flying body press by Morales. There it is. Pedro Morales defends the World Championship here in Madison Square Garden. Unbelievable action. George the Animal Steel defeated by Pedro Morales. The Latin heartthrob from Puerto Rico. All the fans here in New York, they're going bananas right now. Pedro's still hurt. And the winner of the fall in the match, Pedro Morales. There's that Animal, that groveling, smelly, old Animal, George the Animal Steel. He wants some more. Pedro's going to give it to him. Over the top, that hairy ape. Groveling ring attire. Smelly old man. Not much of a wrestler. Evil in the ring, evil outside the ring. George the Animal Steel. The Animal. Sent railing by Morales. Morales gave him a beating. He deserved a beating. Morales gave him a beating right here in Madison Square Garden. As you see all the flags getting thrown in the ring, the Puerto Rican American flag, and Pedro Morales. The crowd loves him. The Puerto Rican heartthrob, 240 pounds in the greatest shape of his life. One of the greatest world champions here in New York City. Pedro Morales. Oh, we got the best of Madison Square Garden. Don't go away. We got another great match coming at you. Oh, yeah. The best of Madison Square Garden. And the crowd here in New York, they just love the wrestling action. And there's a couple of New York's city's finest. And there's Georgia Macropolis, the Chatterbox Chatter.
All right, we're back here. We wanted to bring this to your attention, all these pay-per-views and all these shows around and all these things going on. But I want to bring something to your attention. If you remember the match between the Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion, it was released by them that the champion at that time, I believe it was Morales, and it was wrestling Bruno, and they announced, Vince McMahon announced the gross as of that particular day was $141,345, which was sort of incredible. And they started the gross record, and they beat the gross record of Chicago, which they had broken, had been 136,345. A recent letter which we came into possession of from the Illinois Commission state that the gross of the 1961 Chicago card was 128,071.74. That was the situation with that. And then the San Martino Morales match drew 22,000 people, 508 people, and the fans paid $140,923. And they were hoping to get 40,000 people at that show, but the weather was kind of cold, and for September it wasn't a great thing. But for 1972, I mean, it was a great drawing card, and I don't think it's been broke in the Chicago area, I believe. I mean, I may be wrong. You may check me out somewhere that I may be. If I am, I am, but if I'm not, I'm not. So I don't think I am. And I wanted to bring something to your attention, too, on some of you wrestling fans that are following me now for the several times. Don't forget to watch me on YouTube. If you want to watch any of the shows on YouTube, just go to Rocky Raymond, wrestler, Rocky Raymond, Legends of Pro Wrestling, I believe it's up there under, but all the shows are up there from the beginning of, I believe, when I started promoting in '83, all the way up to now, all the fairs, all the shows, all the fundraisers, everything that I've done is up there. Thanks to the help of my helper here at the studio. Very, very great help from him. And I just want to read the territories, the wrestling offices that were around back in the day, just to let you people know. There was the Florida office, Championship Wrestling from Florida, 106 North Albany Street, Florida, Mass. Eddie Graham Promotions. Then you had the Carolinas Promotions with Jim Cornette promoting. The 421 Bravo Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina. That was the Jim Crockett promotion, as you well know, came NWA, as well as later on became WCW. Then you had the Maritimes and Eastern Sports Association in New Brunswick, Canada. Al Zink was the promoter. Then you had the Detroit office with the Farhat Enterprises. That was in Michigan, and that was run by Eddie Farhat, the original Sheik. Then you had the Calgary office, which we all know was run by Alberta, Canada area with Stu Hart, Brett the Hitman's father. Albuquerque, office, which was out of New Mexico, with Mike London. London was the promoter. Georgia office with Jim Barnett, which was the biggest name that turned wrestling around, helped Vince McMahon with all the studios and turned it over to the national attention that wrestling got by helping out Vince by selling out Georgia Championship Wrestling, the interest of Jack Briscoe and Jerry Briscoe, as well as Paul Jones. That was Georgia Championship Wrestling out of Atlanta, Georgia, and the promoter was Jim Barnett. Now, Gulf Coast was Gulf Coast Wrestling, run by Lee Fields. He was the promoter. And then we had Central States, Heart of America, Sports Attraction. That was Kansas City, Missouri, run by Bob Geigel. And South California, Hollywood Wrestling Office, run by Mike LaBelle. Oklahoma office, Leo McGurk. Bill Watts was the booker, and later became Mid-Atlantic, I believe. Pacific Coast Northwest, Owens Sports Entertainment, I believe, and that was run by Don Owens, which was the Pacific Northwest, and had a lot of great names come out of there. North California Booking Company, Roy Shaw Promotions. Then we had East Texas with Fritz Von Erich's Southwest Sports and Company, which was known as Dallas, Texas, with the World Class Championship Wrestling with the Von Erich boys. Then we had West Texas, which was run by Sports Unlimited, and that was in Amarillo, Texas, by Dory Funk Jr. St. Louis was another territory, St. Louis, Missouri, which was run by Sam Munchnick, which was a very popular. They had the wrestling from the Chase out of there. And then we had Toronto, Canada, which we all know, Tunney Sports, was run by Frank Tunney, which of course Vince gobbled them all up. AWA, we all know, was run by Vern Gagne, the Vern Gagne family in Minneapolis. West Virginia, Ohio, Ken Jugan was a small area in the Ohio area, as well as the Independent Carolinas, which was Johnny Hunter. Then we had Tennessee, which was the Ghoulish Wrestling Enterprises, and of course we had I believe the Jerry Lawler territory was part of Tennessee, and they split up. But those were the many, like that was the list that I sent all my pictures to, and sort of try to get out to some of these places. Like Florida was my first stop, and then let's put it this way, there was no money back in the territory days unless you knew somebody. And of course, we all know what happened to these territories. Vince McMahon gobbled them all up, gobbled them up like the Pac-Man that he is, and he's still going strong with it, but he sort of killed the territories. All right, that's a little something I wanted to, bring to your attention, because a lot of people are watching TV today and watching one show, and unfortunately, you're not getting to see all the other things on. Don't forget to watch New Japan on Friday night on Access TV. They have some great shows on there with all the great wrestlers from New Japan Pro Wrestling, with Tanahashi, all the great names. I mean, they go on and on. You got Kenny Omega down there, Okada, you got them all down there, Ishii, Mishi, all of them. You got so many of them, I can't remember all the names, but they go on and on. Goto, Mitsu Awakawa, no, that's a long time ago. But anyways, you watch it Friday nights, 8 o'clock on Access TV, and all the other great shows that are starting to come back on. And don't forget to watch us on YouTube. Best of the Legends, Best of Empire Pro Wrestling.
Here he is, the fiery one. The crowd hates Fred Blassie, the Pacific Coast champion at this particular time. And here he is, from Puerto Rico, Pedro Morales. This will not be a wrestling match. Fred Blassie does not know too many technical wrestling moves. He bites, he kicks, he punches. And there's our belt, Pedro Morales versus the Pacific Coast champion, classy Freddie Blassie. This one's a classic. As Blassie and Morales now tie up in the ropes, and they're rolling around there. Blassie fires up with a couple of right hands, 3, 4, 5, 7 to 10 right hands now. And another big one. Morales in the corner with this vicious vampire of professional wrestling, better known as classy Freddie Blassie. Choking Morales in the corner now. Like I said, he doesn't know too many wrestling moves. Got a heavy right hand, and Morales down in the corner. Blassie in with a blatant chokehold. And our referee starting to break it up, letting Pedro up.
And Morales now looks to be winded down in the corner. Blassie choking him, blatant chokehold by Fred Blassie. And Blassie in now from behind with the chokehold. Like I told you, there's not going to be too many technical wrestling holds in this great Mat Classic from Madison Square Garden as fiery Fred Blassie choking down on the champion Pedro Morales. Big left hand now. And Morales sent Blassie railing. And Blassie comes back. Oh, there he goes. There he goes, the vampire. Sinking his teeth into the forehead of Morales. Morales with a big left hand now. A right hand by Blassie. Another right hand by Blassie. Morales with a left. Another left now. This is more like a boxing match. Pedro sends Freddie down in the corner now. And Blassie's starting to beg off. Morales with the left hand. A second left hand now. A third left hand. And Blassie's going crazy. Oh, Morales is going bananas on fiery Fred Blassie. Back and forth. All these barreling hands. Heavy blows to the head. Back and forth by Morales and Blassie. Morales with another left hand now. Sending a fiery one, reeling around. He's down in the corner of the fashion plate. Big boot to the midsection now. As you can see that big scar in the back of fiery Fred Blassie. And Pedro Morales rakes the eyes of the fiery one. And a big left hand now on the forehead. And Blassie looks to be busted wide open. Morales. And fiery Blassie. The fiery one now, the vampire, he's biting down on the forehead of Pedro Morales. He's going for blood. He's trying to bust him open. Yeah, Morales is lacerated. Pedro Morales. The fiery one. The vampire, there he goes now. He's sinking his teeth now into the forehead of the Latin heartthrob, Pedro Morales. Blassie's trying for a pin now. Morales with a big left hand on Blassie. Scoop slam by Morales, the first wrestling move. Morales is going up. He's up high. Oh, he hit it. He hit it. He hit the flying body press. Pedro Morales defeats the Pacific Coast champion, fiery Fred Blassie, coming in from California. The meanest man in professional wrestling. He used to shove it down your throat. And there's a bloody Pedro Morales, busted open by the vampire, sinking his teeth into the forehead of Pedro Morales, punching and biting and choking and biting and punching. The whole match, one wrestling move, a scoop slam, and Morales flying off the top rope for the pin. And Morales putting the boots. Blassie, all messed up, all disoriented. The bloody, fiery Fred Blassie, the late, great Fred Blassie, known as the Fashion Plate. Later on became the manager of Hulk Hogan. Such great names of Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik tag team champions. Pedro Morales with the Puerto Rican American flag. They love him here in New York City. Pedro Morales. And he dejected and rejected fiery Fred Blassie, the Fashion Plate. We're coming back at you with the return match. Already in progress. Pedro and Fred Blassie. The return match. Don't go away. We got the best of Madison Square Garden. All the great matches. The legends of professional wrestling. And you see in the ring, it's Pedro Morales with his Puerto Rican American flags. Defending that title one more time here in New York City. As you can see, a bloody Pedro Morales. Hard-fought battle against the Pacific Coast champion. Already in progress. It's the rematch. Pedro and Fred Blassie. Blassie had not had enough in that last Donnybrook. Time for a return match with Pedro Morales. And I don't think this is going to be much of a wrestling match. Fists choking and biting. These two men hated each other. And it's Blassie pushing Morales back into the corner as he rakes the eyes of the Puerto Rican champion. He's raking and gouging, biting, trying to rearrange the facial structure of Pedro Morales. And Blassie's going to send him over the top rope. Oh, he's right in the front row as Morales lands in a section of chairs now. Pedro Morales right outside on top of the timekeeper's table. And Fred Blassie trying to maim Pedro. Oh, he rammed him into that steel corner post. That will not move. And Pedro's shoulder perhaps could be dislocated here. And the crowd's going bananas as Blassie's putting the boots to him outside the ring. The referee's trying to maintain some control. Blassie back in the ring now. The fashion plate with the platinum blonde hair, the white tights. He sinks now. He's sinking his teeth now. Back into the forehead of Morales. Again into that steel corner post. Morales sent reeling down on the mat now. And Pedro's in some kind of a trouble here. And our referee trying to back up Wild Man Fred Blassie, better known as the Vampire, coming in from the Pacific Coast, the West Coast, as the Pacific Coast champion. Lateral press now trying to cover the champion. And he's dropping that knee across the windpipe of Pedro Morales 2, 3, 4, 5 times now. And Morales looks to be out. Oh, he got a scoop slam now, Big Freddie. Freddie scooped up Morales, lodging those knees down into the throat of Pedro Morales. This is the return match. The last match was at Donnybrook. And Blassie now, lateral press, just the 2 count on Pedro. Oh, the crowd here is unbelievable here in Madison Square Garden. And the fiery one, Fred Blassie now, choking on Morales, sinking his teeth into his forehead. Morales comes up with a big left hand to break it up. And Blassie's down on one knee. Morales trying to make his way to his feet. Oh, he lands a big left into the breadbasket of fiery Fred Blassie. And another left hand now sending Blassie rolling around on the mat. Big, heavy left hands by Pedro. Morales, deadly left hand now, and another one sending Blassie back with a couple of rights of his own. Biting, punching. The Vampire, Fred Blassie, in with a blatant bite on the forehead of Morales. They're going back and forth. Morales bites now. Morales biting Blassie. And they're disqualifying Fred Blassie. Fred Blassie has been disqualified. He's taken off for the high grounds. And that's the last you're going to see of this man. The fiery one, Fred Blassie. And New York City's finest, ushering him out of the ring before he causes a riot. One of the most hated men in all of professional wrestling, the fashion plate, Fred Blassie. And Morales gets the fall through a disqualification. Pedro Morales. Oh yeah, this is the best of Madison Square Garden. These are the wrestlers that made wrestling what it is today. And we're back here. Legends of professional wrestling. Did you believe that match? Can you believe it? Well, you better believe it right now because you're here with the one, the only, the one and only Boston bad boy Rocky Raymond. And we want to tell you all the people out there that might have been hit by that tornado. Glad you made it. Hope the town comes through with all the great repairs that they're going to need. But Revere is strong, and I want to say at this particular time on my show that the Mayor Rizzo did a great job on that recovery time. Let's see if we can get some cash for this town, get it rolling, and get us back to where we're supposed to be right here. Where? At Revere TV. Revere strong, that's right. But let's get back to the legends of professional wrestling. We hope you enjoyed those mad classics. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Oh, 1970, 71, those were the great old days of professional wrestling. That's right. When I became a professional wrestler, that's what it was, professional wrestling. Now, we're going to go to part of the program with Pedro Morales. Pedro Morales was getting an award at Cauliflower Alley. Let's get that set up for you right now. Pedro Morales getting a Cauliflower Alley award right there in Studio City, California.
Tonight, this young man was born in Puerto Rico. He was reared in Brooklyn, New York, two-time world champion. He began pro wrestling in 1958 at the age of 16. After a long international career, he has held both the WWA and WWF titles. He's retired now, resides in New Jersey, a very popular and worthy opponent, I can assure you of that. He is honored by his peers here tonight, and they say some imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. And there's one phrase that this man made famous around the world. That's irony of uncut action.
Let me have these quick facts about this gentleman. At age 16, he was ready to sign with a baseball team in Ponce, Puerto Rico, a real baseball team, and was instead, this was after 2 years of wrestling Greco, so like our own great Gorilla Monsoon, he was an amateur champion as well. So he was the youngest at that time to work in the United States Pro, brought in by Vince McMahon Sr. and Cola Coriani to work in the United States. He came in, I believe, 1959 to the Tri-WF. Then he went out to Los Angeles to work for Cal Heat, where he became WWA Singles and Tag Champion. Came back, defeated Ivan Koloff for the WWF Championship, Tri-WF rather. Then went on to San Francisco, became a World Tag Champion there with Pepper Gomez. Worked Florida, where he became the World Tag Champion with Rocky Johnson. Also worked for Vern Gunn in the AWA. And had that famous 1 hour and 11-minute match that outdrew everything, including several other great matches. That was in Shea Stadium.
One of the things that you have to know about boxing and wrestling, and that is you've got to put people in the arenas. A matchmaker's dream was to book Pedro Morales because he did that. Not once, not twice, but just put his name on the marquee and you're just about guaranteed a sell. It wasn't always easy though, because I saw Pedro Morales the last time in 1968, I believe, or 69. It was in Australia, Sydney, Australia. And the last time I saw him, he was in the hospital. He had literally a bump on his head the size of a baseball. He was cut up, and he said, his words were, he said, "They got me." But I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the wrestling world to present this to Pedro Morales.
I don't know how many of you know Spanish. Not too many, yeah, but I would like to thank to Gorilla Monsoon that helped me when I came in 1972 when I was WWF champion. And their angels that helped me, you know. When I came to this country, I don't know the language. I went to California in 1962, Freddie Blassie took me there, and the promoter said to me, go in that TV and don't worry that you don't know the language. And I still don't know the language because that's the way I make my money. Thank everybody.
We're back here, Legends of Professional Wrestling Empire, Pro Wrestling Style. And I hope you enjoyed that Mac Classics with the Bruno Sammartino cam. That's right. That's the camera that's traveled from coast to coast and border to border, taking all this great 8mm film that was converted back in the day to VHS, and then of course we went to DVD, and then you better pick up your bags and move to Beverly because we're moving on to a new cycle now. We got a little thing you put in the camera, a little disc, and everything goes on the disc now, and a little thing you put in the camera. There's no more tapes, there's no more film, there's no more nothing. But I hope you enjoyed that great clip from Cauliflower Alley Club with Pedro Morales getting an award. And basically what he was, you know, the Cauliflower Alley Club, it's once a year you go there, you gather. A lot of the old legends go there, and what they do is they cut bits a little bit like we do on Shirley Avenue. We got a flat roll, we put a little cream cheese on it, and then we eat the flat roll, and then they start talking and kabitzing and talking about the old days and how it used to be and how it is now. If there's something that you might have saw back in the day, I might have it. If there's a picture you may have saw and you want to see it, I can bring it to you where? At Revere TV, your source of community cable with who? The Boston Bad Boy. And we'll see you next time on Legends of Professional Wrestling.